Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and as a proud co-author of the bill, I would like to move the bill. And I'd like to say that I listened to the debate today, and one member of the public challenged us to listen to our constituents, and I am. My office has received 25,000 emails to my public account, 95% of which were neither my constituents, and a good number of them weren't even residents of the state of California. So I am listening to my constituents. And those are Kaiser Permanente, Advancement Project, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, the Alliance for Boys and Men of Color, the Black Students of California United, the California Community College Chancellor's Office, the Commission on the Status of Women, our constitutional officers, Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara and Controller Betty Yee. I'm listening to my mayor, Mayor Eric Garcetti, LAUSD School District Board 1, Seat 1, KRC, the Korean Resource Center, CHERLA, the Campaign for College Opportunity, the Sierra Club, the University of California, the University of California Student Association, the USC Race and Equity Center, and the Western Center on Law and Poverty. I am listening to my constituents. And it strikes me in this day and time why anyone would choose to oppose a policy that aims to acknowledge the role that bias plays in one's ability to access higher education and fair business opportunities. That in and of itself is beyond me. What I do hear and what I find quite painful is a blatant disregard for the history and life experience for a group of people other than one's own. That, from my perspective, in and of itself, could be considered bias. I'd like to compliment the committee consultant for writing a very comprehensive analysis and would encourage all, including the members of the public, to read it. I'm sure it can be found on the Senate Labor Committee's website. Because what's important on page 2 of this analysis is it puts Prop 209, passed in 1996, in a historical context. It reminds us of what was going on in our state during that time. And as the analysis states, one of the co-authors of the California Civil Rights Initiative, which became Prop 209, was an anthropologist in the Cal State system, Glenn Custrid, who in a book, The History of 209, the book entitled The Colorblind, California's Battle to End Affirmative Action, he described his journey to opposing affirmative action as born for his discomfort with diversity and multiculturalism. And he states, and I quote, permission to read, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. As an anthropologist, I know that when you've got diversity, you have a problem, which means that you've got to come up with ways to deal with it in the most realistic way possible. He also described multiculturalism as, quote, terribly misguided, and was concerned that a peaceful America was not possible without a common ground between all Americans. Where America could find Custrid's common ground is unclear, but apparently it was not found in either multiculturalism or diversity. Rather, noting the text of the California Civil Rights Initiative, the common ground is in the denial of differences, a colorblind and gender-blind society. I would argue that many of the arguments I've received in opposition to ACA 5 are full of misinformation and tragically they're vitriolic in terms of their comments about people of color, quite frankly. You know, and whatever your perception is of what a colorblind society even is, the data suggests that we are not currently living in one. Instead, the data suggests that we live in a deeply unequal society where the tools to compete in society are unevenly distributed and distributed in a manner that perpetuates inequality between races and gender at all levels of class and society. You know, I heard a number of witnesses in opposition acknowledge their role as mother. I, too, am a mother. And they talked about not wanting to have to tell their children that they were being judged by the color of their skin in 10 years. I have to make sure that my son understands that he's judged by the color of his skin every single day of his life. You know, personally, this notion of a colorblind society I find offensive because it denies who I am, my rich cultural heritage and background that I'm quite proud of. So it's not about colorblind, it's about respecting differences, acknowledging that you see me and you acknowledge who I am as a Black woman in America. And so for all those reasons, again, it gives me great pride to create an opportunity in 2020, not in 1996, where we had an ambitious governor who was trying to run for president and was going to run on the backs of fear that he helped perpetuate of immigrants and communities of color. Not in 1996, coming off of the passage of Prop 187, again, an initiative framed and cast in this notion of fear of people who are different from you. But we're going to make sure that ACA 5 gets on the ballot in November of 2020, in the middle of an international awakening about the role bias, implicit and explicit, has played on our world and our country and our state. And so again, it gives me great pleasure to co-author and to move the bill at the appropriate time, Mr. Chair. I will be supporting ACA 5 today.